Nathan Gill, thank you very much for joining. How are you?
Yeah, good. Thanks for having me. Appreciate you having me.
Appreciate you being here. I know you've had it's probably been a busy week at work. You work for Arsenal. What has the mood been like at the club this week with the Premier League win?
You know what? So in my role as a scout, a lot of the time we're away from the training ground. We're watching games and what have you. But when I'm in that Hale End. So that's from the sort of under 16s downwards. And because it's had that detachment from the first team, it's probably been given freedom to lean into fandom a little bit more. So a lot of the kids are locally based in the catchment, or with the parents and families. So a lot of them are Arsenal fans, as are the staff. So it's allowed that freedom, I think, of fandom a little bit. You can see the buzz, the noise. We've got screens across the training ground, so people are watching the City game. The 15s had a final on the same day. But some parents are going inside and watching the City game. So it's good, nice. The group chat's going crazy. I've seen staff go to outside the Emirates in full kit, full uniform.
Right.
Everyone's enjoying it. So no, it's been good vibration, positive vibes. And it's nice to see the kids, the parents, the community happy. It's club's an institution in the community.
Yeah, amazing. Well, very happy for Arsenal fans. So you are Senior Professional Academy Scout and Talent ID Coach at Arsenal. How did you get into this work?
So football's been my life from early. So a little snapshot about myself. I've grown up, this football's culture for me, both on my mum's side and dad's side. Heavy Liverpool fans for the vast majority. But my dad and his brothers specifically played football, all good players, all different positions. My dad's probably the biggest influence on me in regards to football. So I used to go and watch him play a lot and then played myself. So my childhood was playing football, watching football, talking football. Had ability myself. I'm certain of that. But it didn't quite land for me in terms of where I wanted to go. So then education was always important. And then beyond 16, it took precipice. So college, university, still played non-league alongside it, and your standard 5-a-side, 7-a-side as well. So I was still probably playing like 5-6 times a week, right. But on a more casual basis. And then around 5 years ago or so, I tore my hip flexor and also moved out of Birmingham. So I was struggling to know what to do myself for a little bit, just not playing football and then also not being in my area. So I'd done my coaching badges just slowly as I was playing, as I held an interest in doing that. And then I got an opportunity at NK Dons, started as an assistant coach, then became a head coach in their Centre of Excellence for a couple of age groups, and then landed a role at Arsenal and coming up to my third season. We're just finishing our third academy season there. So hold the role as a senior academy scout. So I'm mainly looking on the boys' side at players who are already within the system. So we target them for potential acquisition. A talent ID coach. So the boys who have been flagged from grassroots teams, will tend to bring them into our development squad firsthand, and I'll work with them closely and help filter out the best players and ready them for an academy trial, because jumping from grassroots straight into an Arsenal trial can be quite a jump. So we try and use that platform to give them some building blocks.
I can imagine. I definitely want to talk more about that kind of process and pathway. But for you, how does someone go from kind of doing your badges to then working at one of the biggest clubs in the world? Like, how did that part happen for you?
You know what? I think I've seen this quote before, and it's like, I think with the SAS, one of their final assessments is going to the forest at night, and then if they make plan A, B, C, D, and E, and F, there's so many different scenarios, you can't plan enough to make it across. So you've just got to prepare yourself skill set wise, and then put one foot in front of another. And as you see the step, then you'll see the path. I think if I thought about how do I get to Arsenal, I couldn't see it, to be honest with you. So I just put one foot in front of the other. Always played. I felt like I've got a bank of knowledge because I've just been around football organically for so long. But you need to still hone your craft, hone your skill, put myself in difficult situations in regards to not knowing anybody or being in environments that I've not been in before, being vulnerable. Did well on a lot of occasions, didn't do well on some occasions, and learnt from that. And then, just your behaviour and your ability gets recognised. And got an opportunity at Arsenal as a scout initially, just as a scout. Then picked up the coaching capacity because that's something I also wanted to do. I missed being on the grass a little bit. And then carried on and got a more senior position this season. So just trying to put one foot in front of the other. I think if you put, how do I get to the end goal? There's so many different ways and paths. It's difficult to kind of read.
I see. Yeah, I kind of like the way you spoke through that journey. Very quickly, where were you watching your dad play? You said you kind of grew up watching him play. Where was he playing? And
he is just sort of local grassroots teams, but predominantly I caught the back end of his career in terms of what I can remember. But it was like a local team, predominantly with his friends that he'd grown up with around the area. Asian centric team at that point, but had players from all backgrounds, but had an South Asian Indian spine, playing for sort of representing the local Godora. Cool. But his brothers played. Some of the other players there are family friends still to this day, are like uncles to me. So from being around that environment from an early age, then you're going afterwards when they're going to eat or have a drink or what have you. You're just involved in like adult conversation around football, what it looks like, and probably not inputting, but you're just hearing it, you're seeing it, you're watching it, you're seeing what their viewpoint is, and that was like all my weekends. And then that was, again, that's just become culture. So talking about football and hearing so many different opinions around it and strong opinions is set me well for where I am now.
I see. It's really cool to hear about. Recently, I saw this video and you said something really interesting in it about how the game of football is getting a lot younger. For those that aren't as close to the game and kind of youth development, what does that mean?
So the earliest like academy registration age group is under 9s. However, there's development centres and there's teams, unofficially from like under 5-year-olds, 6-year-olds, 7-year-olds. So by that age, someone at 9 years old could have already been playing, say, organised football for 5 years. I know that's like, I think that's year 4 in school. So some people think starting football 9, 10, 11 is young, and in relative terms it absolutely is in terms of the age. But in a football life cycle, they could be 4 or 5 years but behind just in repetition and experience. So, and that is the biggest recruitment age. So I'll talk sort of around the clubs. When we sign a player at 7, 8 years old, they can play across because they're not signed a contract. So they could play for Tottenham, Chelsea, Arsenal. They could train across all 3 clubs at the same time because they're not signed a contract yet. And when they do, it'll be at under 9. So that's the biggest recruitment window because you're signing a whole age group because that's your first one. Going beyond that, there's retain and release, and you might lose some players may join, but it's on the smaller cycle of a squad. That's the first time you're having a whole window. And then going through the system, look, Max Diamond is absolutely unique. Can't really compare him. But he was playing under 18s football at 14. He was playing under 17s football at 13. Similar trajectory to Ethan Ranieri and Miles Lewis-Skelly. They also played up. Before, that would be by exception. And it still doesn't happen lots and lots, but it's becoming more common. The best players of certain age groups are playing 1, 2, 3, 4 years up and quickly, and then being sort of fast-tracked to the first team. So that means the information you're giving these players at times is so far ahead of what their relative age is. And always think about it, in a footballer, you're probably going to likely retire around 35. In the outside world, you're looking more like at 70. So it's not an exaggeration to, I think, sometimes when you're talking to these kids, it's 2x in regards to what you're telling them. And what I mean by that is an under 12, you're talking to them at times, I think their tactical information or IQ, some of ours will be of a 24-year-old playing non-league in regards to their technical detail, how to trap the ball, how to open up on the back foot, when they should press, when they should delay. Is the press, is it a three-quarter press? Is it a winger-led press? This is the back end of our foundation phase that we call it, that these players will be able to know at 12 years old. So the game is getting that much younger because of the recruitment age and because how young these players are playing above, and you've got to get that balance right of equipping them and making sure they're ready, but also still understanding they're not far detached from CBBS or watching cartoons and having hot milk before they go to sleep. So you got to get that balance right, but the game is getting super, super young.
It's a really interesting balance to hear about, and I think I'd imagine there's a lot of young players and their parents who kind of have no idea just how young many players are starting, which kind of brings me on to my next question. For a South Asian kid who wants to pursue football, what do they need to be doing or thinking about?
I think control the controllables first of all, in terms of what's within your remit. I know we'll touch on it as well, and everyone talks about opportunity and shining a light. But first, control what's in your remit. So I think the first part is be a student of the game. Watch football, build your game intelligence, understand what it looks like, and not just the 3-minute clips on the Premier League goals and that catch up, but actually watching 90 minutes, seeing different systems, watching how Arsenal play and how that differs to Man City and how that differs to Brentford and West Ham or what have you. That can be fun as well if you get into it and you're just watching football. It doesn't have to feel like homework and you're writing down notes, but just through osmosis, you'll pick it up. It's really important to build your game IQ, and it's going to separate you from a generation which are starting to watch football less. Repetition, putting the hours in, is so, so important. And again, that doesn't have to be like ladder drills and putting a parachute on your back and hardcore plyometrics, but it can be as well, and that's important if you're towards that upper end of the standard of the game. But I'm talking play with your mates, go down to goals, play a lot. If you're at home, try and beat your kick-up record, get a ball, go next to a wall, left foot, right foot, left foot, right foot, work on your weak foot, work on your first touch. That's within your remit and that's within your control. So you don't need to rely on anyone else for that. So that's super, super important. And with YouTube and the access to knowledge there is and what have you, if you want to watch, how Lamine Yamal's playing at Barcelona, you can watch 15-minute montages and what have you. But as much as possible, try and watch the game in its totality. The players who are more towards the top end of their game and thinking, I want to be within the academy system or the pro system, you've got to first of all dominate whatever standard that you're playing at, whatever that is. If you feel like, I'm playing Division 3 or X, Y, and Z and I'm not at the top of it, be the best player on your team. Be the best player on that pitch consistently. Someone will notice, whether that's the opposition, whether that's a scout at the game, whether it's your coach, whether your team just getting better. Be the best within what's your environment. And then also, don't be afraid of taking opportunity and putting yourself in an uncomfortable position. Can you play in a team which is better, or someone a team where you don't know anyone yet, so you may have to make friends, but they're a well-known team, or they're well-run, or they've got good players and there's an opportunity there. Put yourself in the best scenario as possible. And I think what's happening now is there's more kids getting trials and there's more people in and around it. But what I'm seeing is, and I'm talking about South Asians, there's different types of South Asians, so I don't want to put a spell on all of us and judge us as one character, because that's not the case, and we all know that. But as a general stereotype that I'm making is, when I've seen South Asians go within the system, we kind of try and assimilate and be fit into the surroundings and fit into the environment. You're only going to get signed if you're better than what's within this team. Even if you're going and you're the same, you're not looking to get, it's unlikely that you're going to be signed. You have to be better. So each signing is bettering the team, and you've got to take the shirt off someone else. So you've got to go in there with that mindset and that confidence and that positive arrogance that you've got to go and take someone's shirt. I think sometimes we get put off. We go in there and players may react in an adverse way in terms of teammates saying, it's not good enough. What's he doing here? Or not pass the ball or X, Y, and Z. I promise you that will never change. That will never change. What we have to do is earn credibility with those teammates. One, they want to win. So you've got to show them that you're able and capable of helping a team win. You also got to demand respect from them. It's not going to be given. So these things aren't going to change in whatever environment you go or whatever player, whatever standard you're going to try and strive for. This is what that environment is like. It's tough and it's difficult, but you've got to have enough thick skin to deal with that, show some resilience and have the confidence and positive arrogance that you want to be signed. I feel what I see a lot as well, just to give an example, is, for instance, say a kid has the ball and then a senior teammate within that team demands that ball, pass it straight away. Pass to that teammate if they're in a better position. Absolutely. So if you're at the edge of the box and you're being pressed and you're squaring it over so that person has a clearer shot at goal or they've got a better angle, absolutely pass the ball. However, if you're going to pass it and they have the same opportunity that you have, you're passing on responsibility. So you've got to be able to demonstrate that you can command and take on that responsibility and execute at a high level. So when we go in there, you're taking the shirt, you're looking to be one of the best players or the best player, not just to be, can I fit into this standard? You've got to improve the standard. So I think mindset is so important.
Really interesting. I've kind of asked others that question before. I've never heard someone speak about it in that way. And it makes me think of, like, if we're thinking of South Asian heritage talent at the moment who are like doing very well and coming up, I'm thinking of players like Farhan Ali Wahid at Fulham Academy, who's recently a nominee for PL2 Player of the Season. And I think he does demonstrate that. He takes the ball and he shoots, or he's on the offensive. And yeah, I think that kind of fits into exactly what you say, like what you need to be doing and not simulate and not just pass the ball, take that responsibility.
Absolutely. See, with Farhan, I've never met him and what have you. I think I might have seen him at 1-2 events, but I've seen him play and he gets the ball and his first intention is to go forward. Is to go, so his teammates know he's going to try, he's going to go, he's going to beat his man, he's going to shoot, he's going to cross, and he does it at a high level, so they trust him. It's nothing beyond, he's a nice guy, or X, Y, and Z. It's his ability commands their respect, and he's got that mindset of if he shoots, he's not put off from shooting again. So if he scuffs a shot and his teammate says something, it's not going to say, you know what, next time I'm going to pass it. I want to do what, if the right pass is on, I'll pass it. But if I feel like I squared up my man, I'm going to drive at him again.
I see. And you shared quite a lot of detailed advice. What would you say are, like, of everything you just spoke about, like the 3 or 4 like key things to keep in mind as a young kid, but particularly for our audience, a young South Asian kid who wants to thrive in football?
I think, so one is mindset, which we just touched at. So I won't relay the point, but mindset and that thick skin and that positive arrogance is super important. When you're going then beyond that, the technical abilities of the game, you've got to be able to handle the ball to a certain level. You've got to be able to, every academy team now to a certain level is trying to build through the thirds. So you've got to be able to be comfortable with the ball under pressure. So your ball mastery, can you use both feet? Can you manipulate it? Your athleticism, because the game is played at the highest speed within this country and the highest physical demands. So there's a level of athleticism which is important. And again, I would say that's something that's under our control, because if someone's right-footed, to teach them to be left-footed and as equal as left-footed, it's a difficult task, and you can work on that. But I think improving your base level of fitness to as fit as you can be is something that was in our control. So maybe your sprint speed, there's genetics there, and that might be more difficult and what have you. But if you're maximizing what you have, then you know you've given it your best shot. So I think get to your maximum, and then that's nutrition, that's sleep, that's whatever, physical work you're doing. And again, that's YouTube, Instagram, TikTok. You don't need any premium sort of advice outside of that. You can find it all within that, and there's some real nuggets to be found. But mindset, technical ability, your physical ability, but ultimately what I would say is how you influence the game. How do you influence the game? So I look at Hakimi at right back compared to Trent. I say they're both world-class right backs. They play the position completely different. Look at Harry Kane and you look at Erling Haaland, both prolific number 9s. Again, I think they play the game completely different. Haaland plays on the shoulder, wants to get in behind, physically a beast, strong, quick. Kane lacks the yard of speed, comes deeper and deeper, but at the same time still in a position to score, can score off both feet, has the IQ out of this world. So they play the position in a completely different way, but it's how they influence the game. So how do you influence the game? That's key.
Very interesting. One thing that often comes up in this conversation about South Asian talent in football, and I've heard it from South Asian people and non-South Asian people. And again, this is not a platform where we generalize, but one thing that's come up a lot is like, as much as clubs and the FA and other places try to have initiatives, I don't know if this is fair or not, but like often parents are a barrier as well. There's obviously kind of long stereotypes around that. I'm not sure how true that is today or not. But yeah, for the parent of a South Asian kid who wants to pursue football, what do you think they need to be doing or thinking about?
I think a couple of the stereotypical questions are education is important, and this is a time demand. I say education is absolutely important, but why does it have to be one or the other? You can do both well. Saka got great grades, and a lot of other players did as well. You may have to sacrifice other things, but it doesn't have to be one or the other. The other thing as well is when you're playing football, you're learning to be in a high stress situations from early. You're physically fit, so that helps your mental fitness as well. You have to be disciplined, you have to be punctual. So these are life skills that will serve you outside of the game. So it doesn't have to be education or football. It absolutely can be both. It depends on how committed you want to be. If you're really adamant, I want to be a professional footballer, I want my son or daughter to follow that pathway. It's almost saying, I want them to be an astronaut, but it's not to put them off, but it's saying you're setting your standards and your aspirations high, but don't shy away from that. Absolutely put the best foot forward to go and do that, but have a balance. So football will take a lot of commitment. So a lot of the kids, sometimes they might wake up early and do their homework before school or after, so they're free to do training afterwards, or they might do it afterwards, or X, Y, and Z, whatever works for them. But it is a time commitment. It absolutely is. But you're trying to achieve something that the majority don't. So people come out with stats, and I think it's like 0.02% are going to become like a professional footballer.
And that's like the whole population, right?
But 0.2% to 0.5% of the whole population will become a lawyer. And we don't say don't become a lawyer. So, and again, I know it's slightly, we've gone 0.02 and 0.2, but we're still talking less than 1% of the population. We don't say don't do that. So set your standards high, and football will give you attributes and life skills which are outside the game as well as inside the game. So education and football, they can go hand in hand. The other part is, what if they get released typically at 16, because that's the big one before the scholarship and then professional contract, and they've been in from 8, 9 and it's heartbreaking and their dreams crush. I think, look, there's no getting away from that. Any kid would be disappointed, and they are, so there's no getting away from that. However, it's the message we're telling them on the journey. So another way of looking at it is, you could have been playing football for free this whole time, but instead you've played with the best coaches, wearing kit, we've got best facilities, maybe gone on tours, been in high stress environments, won trophies, had great experiences for life. And then you've learnt those attributes that we talked about in terms of resilience, punctuality, high stress situations from early, physical fitness, discipline, that will set you in whatever you want to do for the rest of your life. So, and you can say, look back on it and say, I had a great childhood doing that and learning that. And then I can still play football at whatever level, maybe on the side, and still earn money from it in addition to whatever I do, or branch off into a different aspect of the game, whether that be coaching, whether that be off the pitch in terms of commercial or whatever that may be. So there's so many benefits to come from it. It depends on the messaging we're telling the kids at the time. So we can't put all that can be the priority, but not the sole focus. We've got that messaging has to be there, so they're more than just a footballer, and they have different aspects to them, even though it is the primary focus. So for a parent, their education go hand in hand. Support in regards to having a focus, but understanding the wider spectrum and what the messaging is to the kids, and also just support in regards to whatever level your child is. Go and support them. Go be on the side. Go and watch them. Be there. How can you help wash the kit for the Sunday team or what have you? Can you just go there, make tea? Can you just be there with the parents? And that creates an atmosphere and support and a confidence in the child that they have that support. Let them dream. Let them dream. And set high standards. I think don't shy away from that. But we need to be banging on the door more. No one's going to come and save us. In terms of everyone says, oh, I know these talented boys, or I know these talented girls, and there's hotspots here and great players, and we all know that. And not only do I not disagree with it, I fundamentally agree with it. But we need to put ourselves out there and be in vulnerable situations. And if we want our kids to do it as a family, you've got to support them.
Really good advice. Thanks for sharing that. Yeah, I've never heard that stat before, and that comparison with like lawyers and kind of no one saying don't go and pursue law. Really, really interesting. You've already touched on it. I was going to come on to it later, but kind of being released from academies or clubs, like we're at that point in the season now where young players are being released from academies, and I can't imagine myself what it must be like to be in that position. What advice would you give to those young players right now?
I say the first thing is, because you feel like alone and what have you, you're in the majority, not the minority. 99% are going to get released at some point, whether that's in the age phase, at 9s, 10s, 12s, 14s, 16s, or 18s, not getting the pro, or do get your pro and then get released, or make it to the first team and don't get a contract renewal. Everyone's journey is different and nothing's linear. So I'd say you're in the majority, not the minority. So you're definitely not alone. If you feel like there's been a mistake, then absolutely you can be validated. You look at Eze and look at Rice. Declan Rice was released at 14 from Chelsea. Eze was released from Arsenal, and then also went through at Fulham and Millwall before he landed at QPR. So and now they're Premier League champions, worth hundreds of millions, just those two, in their mid-20s, not far removed from 10 years, just over 10 years in regards to when they had those instances. So you can absolutely go and prove people wrong, because it's a game of opinions and not necessarily fact. So use it as fuel for motivation, and it's the end of your chapter at whatever club that is, but not necessarily your story. But also as well, like we've touched on before, remember that you're more than a footballer. So what do you want to do? Do you want to go back in? And you can, then it's important to also take on the feedback that was given. So try and prove people wrong, but understand what their consensus or opinion is around you at the moment, and work on that. And this is really where it shows in regards to if you want to be a footballer or not. Because the predominantly professional footballers will play 1 or 2 games a week, 90 minutes, 180 minutes per week. So what they're doing outside of that, in terms of going to sleep at the right time, their nutrition, staying away from people or social activities, keeping locked in and focused and being consistent with it throughout. It's really, really difficult. And then when you're detached from a club and still do that, it's even more difficult. So what you do in the shadows will come to light eventually. When and where is we can't yet maybe see that, but you've got to put your best foot forward. But I would say as well, what we were saying around not putting all your eggs in one basket, understand what else there is out for you as you're trying your best to go back in or go where you want. But don't let it define you. Don't let it define you. It's the end of the chapter, not the story.
Very good advice. Thank you. I'm sure a lot of young players will really appreciate hearing that. We're often covering a lot of young South Asian talent that are coming through, and it's a kind of a story from the outside. You often hear a lot from fans like, "Oh, we've had loads of young boys and girls coming through, and then at some point they're released, and then kind of never hear from them again." But we come across that story quite a lot, so it's really nice to be able to share back from your own expertise, kind of advice to players in that position. So thank you. Couple more questions, kind of going back to what we were talking about earlier in terms of advice for young South Asian kids and their parents. But looking a bit more broadly now, when it comes to the gaps in football pathways, where do you think the gaps in football pathways are for South Asian talent?
I think the first one is the age of entry. So I mentioned, so the biggest, if we're talking coming into the system, I'm assuming. So yeah, it's the age of entry because that biggest recruitment window is under 9. So someone gets their kid involved at 10 or 11. As crazy as it seems, they're behind. So that first registration is under 9. So you need to get their kids playing football as early as possible. Again, it doesn't have to be your parachutes on the back and ladder drills, but it's getting playing football in 3v3s, 5v5s, your local team, that's absolutely fine. But just some sort of organised football that they can enjoy. And if they have a passion for it, then you can start taking it more seriously or putting more on. But it has to start with their passion. You get them. I think it's our job when you're parents or in your family to get the kids involved from an early age. And then if they develop a passion, then you can kind of lean into it. If they don't, then maybe it's something else. But it's got to start with their passion. We've got to take them there and then see if it comes. So age of entry is super, super important because that first window, once you miss it, not saying lots of players are signed after it, but it's the biggest window. The next part is repetition, so how many hours you're putting in. So if there's a kid who's 12, say 2 teammates and there's similar ability, and then one gets signed, then a typical academy at 12, for instance, will train 3 times a week, maybe have 1 or 2 games, and then the level of coaching and facilities that they're training at and what have you will obviously amplify. That same kid, if he's maybe training once a week for an hour and having 1 match on a Sunday, although they started at the same place, in a year's time, one's going to go like this and one's going to go like this just because of the environment that they're in. So repetition is super, super important. So how much football you're playing and where you're playing it at. I think we've got to be open to playing for teams which aren't in our immediate environment, playing for prominent grassroots teams, putting ourselves forward in grassroots tournaments, and not being afraid to showcase ourselves or being vulnerable, or we don't know how we're going to perform. Maybe it'll be too much of a jump, but you're not going to know till you do it. And if you do it and don't do great, there's a lots of learning there, but you've got to have that vulnerability, putting ourselves forward. I'm seeing now from the inside, without knowing the environment, there's not so much on a spotlight on it, and there's lots of like CPDs and stuff from organisations in terms of widening the net and understanding environments and what have you. But I'm saying, as someone from the community, we need to do more to bring ourselves to the forefront and knock on the door. There's a lot of discussion of the door's not open for us, and I understand that and agree as well. There's certain points with negative stereotypes and what have you, and a lack of reference points. But we need to make sure we're banging on the door. And I don't feel like we are. I think we're a little bit disillusioned with the game and the lack of opportunities that have happened thus far. So we're just happy with what space we're in. But was at an event a couple of years ago with the PFA, and I think there's about 100 kids from across the country who are in an academy from South Asian heritage of some sort. But there can be so many more. There can be so many more. But we've got to be not afraid to be vulnerable and put ourselves in the window, and making sure we're supporting each other. So platforms like these are super, super important to shine a light on what exists and how we get there.
Thank you. Yeah, really, again, like all your other experiences and perspectives you share, it's like really, really insightful. So thank you for sharing that. You mentioned this platform. When you see Brown Town Rising's content, what does that make you think or feel?
There's a sense of pride because there's a positive spotlight on what the community is and what the community is capable of, and then there can bring a sense of belonging and togetherness. I think then going forward, the ambition is it just becomes the norm, and it's not by exception, and it's just a normal conversation, saying this is what we're doing. But I think it's really, really important that the work's being done at the moment to shine a spotlight and add as a fuel and a sense of motivation that there's possibilities. There are people there. There are Mal Benning, my young cousin. She's at Wolves' academy. So of course you'll have role models, your Georgia Stanways and what have you in England, but also there's Kira Roy, there's Sarit Binning, so she can look directly towards, and she's got motivation. I don't know what role models they had, but they serve as role models for her now. And I think that's super, super important. And platforms like this and showcasing that is super important.
Thank you. And yeah, absolutely. Like I think maybe a few players have come and gone in decades past, but if no one knew their stories, like the way we kind of spotlight Sarit's or Kira's or any other player, can't like build on that momentum and make that multiplier ultimately. Yeah, so thank you for the kind words. One thing I want to ask you at the beginning actually, and we haven't really discussed yet, is like a lot of people vaguely understand what a scout is, but like day to day, what does that involve in your role as a scout? I know it's not just that, but yeah, does that quite involve?
So you watch a lot of football. To be honest with you, there's two different types of scouts. So there's the professional side in terms of which I look at. So that's on the acquisition side. That's the boys who are already signed within the game. I'll look at them build intelligence in terms of dossiers and reports on what's available in the market, both to understand what opportunity there is for acquisition and bring the top talent in to us potentially, but also to benchmark our players in regards to how good they are compared to what there is on the market. And then the other side is the grassroots, where scouts go out and have a look at what best unsigned talent there is and where the rough gems are. And that will always be the bloodline of any great club. It's going to be predominantly from grassroots and then acquisition by exception. But grassroots will be the bloodline. In regards to, what a typical scout, it'll be watching games live predominantly for me, but also some video reports. And then reporting takes a big chunk of time in regards to writing reports on what we see. So we have a bank of intelligence and we can create a dossier or a report on a player over a length of time so we can see their trajectory on where they are, where they were a couple of years ago, see different opinions. Very rarely I don't think never a player will be signed off one scout's opinion. So we all have our own biases or backgrounds or experiences. So we have a bank of reports from different people, different contexts over different times, because it's important to, even if I see a great player, it's okay, did they have a good day? What was the opposition like? What was the standard opposition? What was our formation? What was their formation? Was it a cup game? Was there much stress on it? Was it a midweek after school? Was it on a Saturday? Was it a national championship? Was it a game? Was they playing up? What was his particular matchup look like? So the context and the different factors are always so important. So you've got to build up a long range of reports, and there's a lot of depth going into that. And then it'll be creating sort of depth charts and speaking to other scouts. Building your network is super important to understand what's going on in the market. Being able to know different players, benchmarking. So I think what I'll give in this example as well, actually touching back on the point of what do scouts look for. We had a talent ID game and we won 7-0 and the striker scored 4 goals. But we decided he wasn't for us. So he's probably thinking, what more can I do? I've scored 4 goals in a game. But we saw his matchup wasn't great in regards to the team he was playing against. His athleticism for all the team and age group that he was going to go into, he would have potentially struggled. So his performance was great, but his potential in our environment in terms of what we would project would probably fall short. And he wasn't quite the right match for us, but his performance, he couldn't have done any more. So I'm thinking parents and player might think, what's going on here? I've scored 4 goals and not callback. In another game, we lost 5-0 and we took the centre-half on trial because he was aerially dominant. He won all his duels. When we were 4-5-0 down, his attitude was A1. He was commanding the back line. He kept making his passes to midfield, breaking lines, spraying, and we were turning over the ball through his teammates' inability to secure possession. So individually, he did really well. But on the paper, someone's saying, my son scored 4 goals in a 7-0 win, didn't get in trial. This son was a centre-half in a 5-0 loss and did go on trial. So potential over performance is super important. But going back to the question in regards to what a scout does, watching that many games helps us create a bank of knowledge and being able to benchmark and project where players are going to go. So that's why it's so important for us to watch different teams, different players, different age groups, and try and understand the cycle as best as we can.
Nathan, this has been like a mine of insight, and I really appreciate you sharing this with our audience. Is there anything else you want to touch on before we wrap up?
No, I think just the age-old dilemma is why isn't there enough South Asian players? I think the answer to that question 20 years ago may have been different to what it is now. So I don't think we always need to do the whole synopsis of what's happened, but it's what can we do? What can we do going forward? And what we can do going forward is start playing football earlier, start playing more football, start being vulnerable, and when you do go in and have an opportunity, go in with a positive arrogance to show that you're not there just to fit in, you're there to raise the standard.
Amazing way to wrap it up. Nathan Gill, thank you so much for your time. Just to reiterate as well, like you're an individual, you're not representing Arsenal in this interview. Just need to make sure I say that. But you have a wealth of experience that I'm really, really happy you've been able to share today. So thank you very much for your time, bro.
No, top man, appreciate you. Thank you.